Welcome back to Five on the Floor. I am your host, Greg Sylvander. With me on tonight's episode, live from the FTX Arena, following the Miami Heat's preseason loss to the Minnesota Timberwolves, we have Alex Toledo. You can follow him on Twitter at Tropical Blanket. It is just he and I. Tonight's floor plan, we are going to break down the first preseason game of the 2022-2023 Miami Heat season. They lose 121-111 to the Minnesota Timberwolves. Obviously, this is much a dress rehearsal. There was no Rudy Gobert, no Karl Anthony Towns for the Minnesota Timberwolves. There was no Jimmy Butler, Victor Oladipo, and someone else that I'm forgetting. Alex, help me out. Who the hell else didn't play for the Heat? Gabe Vincent. Thank you. I was wondering why he wasn't in the scrimmage. Now we know they were both Depot and him were resting. It felt like, unless I missed that. But we did get to see some guys, right? So we got to see Anthony Edwards. We got to see a lot of the young talent that I think is going to surround those big, the Twin Towers in Minnesota. And then we saw some things from Miami that I thought was interesting. And this is where we're going to start, Alex. And I'd love for you to kind of give your initial feedback because you were in the building and I was. So let's just give the listeners a view into how Greg Sylvander figured out how to watch tonight's game. League Pass doesn't really give you preseason viewing. So I had to go searching the internet for a stream, and that's never fun. So it was difficult. The pop-ups, y'all know that struggle. So I was watching in and out, but the one thing I did see was an aggressive Bam Adebayo. So I want to start there. And you know I love that above the break three-pointer as well. Alex, what was your thoughts around Bam Adebayo's approach to the game? I'm interested to hear offensive tweaks, things you saw from him that you thought might translate in just your overall perception of Bam Adebayo after the first glimpse of this season.
Well, it's interesting. I thought he looked really good out there, especially in the first half. I mean, he ended up finishing the game 9 of 17. So he's already on his way to 18 field goal attempts a game. So far, he's living up to what he said, what he promised. But no, really, I think we saw a lot of tonight of what it looked like last season when Jimmy wasn't on the floor. You just see the team play at a faster pace than normal. I just think guys were making quicker decisions. The ball was moving fast. And I felt like most guys were moving on the floor. I feel like, when throughout the whole game, and especially when Kyle was on the floor, it feels like things were moving fast. And that's kind of what I was looking to see, whether it was from Bam or anybody else. We talked all summer about how they might look to lean heavier on the offensive side now, given the way that the summer transpired. So it was good to see that, even though, they didn't necessarily make a lot of shots. It was kind of an ugly game. There was some ugly turnovers, including from Bam. But I like his process, though. Like, he was making quicker decisions, and I think was looking to score a little bit more often. We all saw him, take that above the break three and make it. As Brady mentioned on last night's Five on the Floor, he likes taking shots in rhythm, and that's pretty much the same way he got it there. And look, if he's actually going to do that during the regular season, even if it's one a game, I think that's a nice step up for Bam. And if teams even have to think about it for half a second, that's already a step up because he's already such a threat as a roller. So that half a second of having to think about it, even though they're probably still going to let him take that shot every time until he really proved himself to be a shooter, it's nice, man. It's going to be nice to have that as a relief, especially, when he's playing next to another big. And that's kind of my other thing is the way that Bam was able to still be so effective offensively, even though he was playing with Yurt on, a lot of the times where he was out there. So I just think, like, it was interesting. There was some awkward moments between the two of them as far as when they were playing together. Like, there was one time, I think Strus came off a dribble handoff or something, and he was kind of driving towards the rim, and you had both Omer and Bam rolling at the same time on opposite sides of the, opposite elbows. So that's stuff that I think, you can figure out with more reps. And I think you'll probably see more of the way they used to do it with Bam and Kelly or Bam and Myers, where you'll have the stretch big pop at the same time that Bam rolls to the rim. And I think, Omer did a nice job. I know you asked me about Bam, but so much of Bam, I think, in his performance tonight, it's just me being really pleased with the way that he was able to be efficient as a scorer. And even though he had those 2 turnovers back to back, I like the way that he was just taking control and looking like, one of the primary playmakers out there, even with Kyle on the floor. So being able to do that with Omer taking up space. And, it's kind of a green flag, right? Like I said, the offense wasn't necessarily hitting on all cylinders or anything like that with all the guys they were missing. But I saw some good things from the way that Bam was able to contribute despite having another big there. And I think their minutes together, even though Omer finished with the team low, minus 19, which,
Yeah.
individual plus minus is not necessarily the best way to judge games, but I do think Omer showed some stuff. The shot is a little quicker, like I mentioned on the last night show. He doesn't have the most arc on it, but he gets it off quicker, which is going to be good if he's going to be a spacing big next to Bam. I liked what I saw from Omer, man. Like he was getting post touches when he had a mismatch. He was taking the shot and not thinking about it. He's still pretty good as a guy who can receive it up top for handoffs. Like, I think there's some positives there.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm glad you're reading my mind, because the next place I was going to go is the fact that Spo went with what everybody, I don't know about everybody, but there's definitely a subset of the Miami Heat fan base that wants to see the two big lineup, and they want to see what it looks like, and they want to see how it would work. And he went to it. It's almost like he said, I know in the regular season, y'all got Twin Towers and Gobert and Cat. So this is what I would be starting if you were playing those guys. And I thought it was interesting. And on our Off the Floor subscriber feed, you and Brady were both kind of articulating the ways that the Heat were able to still create space with both of them on the court, very much by where they're placing players. And I think that that's an interesting wrinkle going forward. And to close the loop on Bam before we kind of head on to the rest of the game, for me, it's that aggressiveness. It's like the fact that like he was not thinking about going up and taking shots. I'm taking 9 of 17, 9 of 18, 9 of 19. I'm in. Like, I like that kind of aggressiveness. So for me, even though there were a couple moments where he looked like he maybe was getting caught up with this dribble and stuff like that, the aggressiveness, I love it. And yeah, the Yurt stuff, he gets rebounds in his sleep. And I think they're going to find ways to make him work. I think it's pretty apparent that he's ahead of Dedmon in the pecking order. And I think that that's something Ethan kind of was alluding to, questioning whether it would be Dedmon or Yurt that rose to the occasion there. And I think they're going to rely on the young guy initially, but I don't want to read too much into the first game. The next guy that we'll talk about before we go to break is, let's go with the big payday extension. Mr. Tyler Hero, 22 points in 26 minutes, 7 of 14 from the field, 6 of 6 from the free throw line, 2 of 5 from 3, +4 in the box, plus minus, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 4 turnovers. That's the black eye here, 1 steal. I liked his game. I felt like that there were moments where when Minnesota was acting like it was maybe the regular season, they, not blitz, that's too strong of a word, but they got up in his yard, and you could see he got a little uncomfortable at times. So that's going to be an ongoing thing to watch. I think I just inevitably am watching for that. But I thought for the most part, he got to his spots. He looked sharp. The shot was there. He's doing other things. He looked engaged and involved, not picked on too much defensively, if at all. Am I wrong with any of that assessment? Am I going in the wrong direction on defense? Did I miss him not play well? Alex, what were your takeaways from Tyler Hero's performance?
I'm pretty much on the same page as you. I think, he had a good game. I think he really just gets to his spots with ease. And yeah, I also noticed a couple of times where they kind of played him a little bit tougher, especially when he was kind of like looking for a screen. People will start coming up and not even letting him get to that screen, because I think they realize how lethal he is, once he comes off of that, and the way that he can get to his spots off the screen. And I know he's talked about wanting to not have to use the screen as much going forward, but that is, one of his bread and butter as far as actually getting to the spots. I think, he had a really nice finish at the rim there. I think he's just, he does what he does. And I feel like all season, and Ethan already said this on last night's show as well, it's just going to be so weird to talk about Tyler now that he's gotten paid, coming off of a bad playoffs before and after he got hurt. It's just going to be tough because he's never really going to get, I feel, the respect that he probably deserves until he actually does show up and have great performances in the playoffs. And it feels like all this stuff that happens until then, it's just not going to count for Heat fans and for a lot of people watching, which sucks because we're talking about a 22-year-old player, right? I think he's 22, and his development along the way, I think, he developed fast, and a lot of it turned into higher expectations. And we've gone over this in the past, but I just think like now with Tyler, it's about trying to see who he really is. Is he more of the guy that he was in last year's regular season, or is he more of the guy he was in last year's playoffs? And I like what I see from him. I just think he is a natural bucket getter, and I'm expecting a bounce back season from him. He was playing real free out there, and I think another year now, more reps, more experience for Tyler, and that's the type of stuff that's going to be huge when you're actually talking about him coming up big in the playoffs, because it's like it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. It happens after a whole season's worth of experience, a whole season's worth of lessons. And I know all of that kind of sounds a little bit corny, but he's a young player who just went through a really tough, kind of an up and down season. When you look at how great of a regular season he had, winning 6-man and then going through a rough playoffs.
So true.
I'm here to live with Tyler in the short term and really just see what's going on, man. I want to see the development.
No, there's definitely you're seeing that he's ready for more usage. I think we all could see that. I think that it's a perfect opportunity for him. Like there's been a lot of talk of how Tyler is going to, and he's even talked about it himself about like playing off the ball and how different it's going to be. I actually think for a lot of the regular season, he's not going to have to play off the ball. They need his ass on the ball to score as much as possible to get them through this damn regular season. He's a shot maker, and they need shot makers. So I don't buy as much the fact that he's going to have to be off the ball now. Playoff time, that's different. So they're going to need to integrate that, and they're going to have to figure it out along the way. So there's definitely a learning curve there. But I think that they're going to need Tyler Hero to be pretty damn good on the ball. And I thought he was that for the most part tonight. 4 turnovers I don't love. The team had 15 turnovers. They were sloppy. It's the first preseason game. We're not going to take too much from it. And speaking of not taking too much from it, when you look at Duncan Robinson and Max Strus, they were a combined 2 of 16 from the field and 0 of 10 from 3. Y'all know what that's called, right? A disaster. And when a disaster strikes in your home or business, Water Cleanup of Florida is the company you need to go to. They are fully licensed, insured, and certified to provide the one-stop shopping that all busy homeowners and business owners require. No need to bring in any other contractors. They got you 24/7. If you have a water leak and you don't know where it's coming from, if you're dealing with water or mold damage in your home or business, you need to call Water Cleanup of Florida, 954-579-0356 for immediate assistance. That's Michael's personal cell, 954-579-0356. Over 60 years of combined experience. You need to get with Water Cleanup for leak detection, any water damage issues. Service areas include Miami, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. Call Michael anytime on his personal cell. Again, 954-579-0356. Visit their website, wcufl.com. Follow them on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check out their 70+ 5-star reviews on Google. That's Water Cleanup of Florida. If you have the schmutz, they have the guts. Okay. So yeah, I alluded to Max Strus and Duncan Robinson. That was ugly shooting. The Miami Heat shot ugly from 3 overall. We're looking at 28.6% from 3-point land. As we saw last season when they shot below, I forgot what the percent was, their league average, which was pretty high. Wasn't it first throughout the season at like 37%? But whenever that dips below, they have trouble. Should I be concerned with the shooting from the shooters? Because without the shooters, does any of this work at all? I don't think I should be. That's how I walk away from this. Is there anything you saw quickly, just in 1 minute or less, things that you maybe saw from those two? Because I don't want to spend too much time on the negative stuff. That's why I'm giving you a clock. That's the only reason. Duncan and Strus, should I be concerned that they couldn't hit the broadside of a barn tonight?
Nah. I actually liked what I saw from both of them as far as their offensive process. And I know I keep going back to that. It's just when shots go down, it's hard to go back and look at an offensive process and say that, it worked when you didn't get the result you wanted. But I thought, and we've talked about this before, Duncan and Mac a lot of times are going to get run off the line when they're coming off a triple handoff, or when they're just running around the 3-point line, doing their little routes that they do to receive the ball. Like, a lot of the times they're going to get run off, and I like what they do. Like, they've gotten used to reacting, and I think Duncan has always been a little bit better at this and just kind of reading the defense from there. He took a couple of attempts kind of in that in-between range where, he gets run off the line, he gets maybe a foot in the paint, and, had that little two-handed runner, in the mid-range. And I like that. It's just him reading and reacting to the game. And, I would like him to make more shots for sure. Same thing as Max Strus. But like, those guys are shooters, and they talked about it plenty of times. We've talked about it plenty of times. They're going to have off shooting nights. Tonight was very casual, very, fast paced for the way they usually play. Like you said, kind of sloppy, because I feel like they were just not as careful as they usually are. Maybe it's just a result. Jimmy not playing, it's preseason. It's the first game. They actually also played last night, even though it doesn't really count. It's, still some mileage on the body. Like, I don't really take anything from that. I just like to see Max and Duncan reading and reacting to the defense, and both of them seem pretty confident out there. Like, I didn't think Duncan looked hesitant at all. And he just had that really, really ugly miss in the second half, which I think the last shot he took. So that's what I'm remembering now. But as far as before then, like, I actually liked what I saw from him.
And Kyle Lowry, because I have to be honest with you. So here's the thing to our listeners. I didn't love Kyle Lowry's training camp, and I wasn't there, and I didn't really see much of it. So I'm kind of like just going off the cuff here to say that, like, there's a vibe about it that I've been a little off about Kyle Lowry lately. I don't know if it has to do with the conditioning comments, maybe, like, I'm such a Riley loyalist that I just can't let it go, but I didn't like his game tonight. Am I fair to say that? And this is the other thing. When you look at 1 assist, like, should I read into any of this at all with Kyle? And I know I've asked you this about every player, but this is the one guy that I was like hoping I would see like a different level of energy from, almost more like Caleb, which is who I was going to go to next. And I just didn't see it. Is this just a vet that's just going at his own speed and I need to leave it alone?
Yeah, I definitely think between last night and tonight that he is cruising out there. Like, he's on autopilot, man. It just looks obvious. Like, you barely notice him out there. And like, I really don't think he's, you know what I'm saying? He's not even giving regular season effort. And we saw how in the regular season, he could stray away from taking shots, and he's already kind of conservative as it is. So he's even more conservative right now. Like, I really think he's just out there to be out there, setting guys up. Like, you could tell he wouldn't have minded not taking a single shot throughout this whole game. He only took 3. I don't take anything from it. I think this is more of a game, especially for the Exhibit 10 guys who maybe won't get as much playing time to kind of show out. And I'd almost want to talk about those guys more, because I feel like Kyle just, and Jimmy, by the way, was the same thing last night. Like, I think both of those guys they're just cruising through this part of the season. Like, they're not going to waste a single bit of their stamina or whatever, any physical play. They're not going to waste a single bit of that effort throughout that scrimmage and preseason.
See, that's probably the smart thing. It's better that that's what they're doing, and they're not like overdoing it just so that Greg Sylvander's not concerned about Kyle Lowry and his salary this season and his play. But I'm still interested throughout this year. I guess I'll give you this, and then we're gonna segue to the rest of the guys, because I think there were some diamonds in the rough that there's a player specifically that I can't believe we've gone this long and I didn't mention him. But we're gonna get to all those guys in a minute. But from you, Alex, 59 games. Kyle Lowry, does he go over or under 59 games played in the 2022-2023 regular season?
My first instinct is over, because he did a little bit more than that last season, despite all the stuff he was going through. And I know he didn't really have any injury issues throughout the season, so maybe he could have some. My first instinct is to say over. I just think the way that he takes it easy in the regular season is more of a, and I've said that about Jimmy too. I just think like they're not. I feel like they play at 80% of the effort that they play in the playoffs with. And I just think that's in general a lot of the way that stars play now. It's like they're kind of pacing themselves throughout the regular season. But I think he is probably back in the in the lower 60s the way he was last season.
Well, if you like the idea of picking over and unders, you need to go to prizepicks.com. It is daily fantasy made easy. They'll match your first deposit up to $100 if you use the code 5. That's FIVE. Use that code. You'll get your initial deposit matched up to $100. It is daily fantasy made easy. You just choose over and unders on all your favorite players, on all your favorite stats, whether it be points, rebounds, assists. They don't have games played. That was just me setting Alex up there for the Kyle Lowry talk and also this read in. But you can do all kinds of NFL props. They have passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards, interceptions, completions, all kinds of stuff like that. You choose your over and unders. You can win 10 times up. You can win 10 times and even more. You get multipliers depending on how many players. If you do power plays, flex plays, Prize Picks is available in 30 states, including DC and Canada. Go to prizepicks.com. They also have a great mobile app. Use the code 5 to get your initial deposit matched. All right. So the dude that I should have mentioned, and I got everyone on Twitter astir about this, and this is kind of where we'll close, is we're going to run through these guys. Haywood Highsmith. He gave me PJ Tucker vibes, and everybody came after me and said, he doesn't play like PJ Tucker. I just don't see it. Well, obviously he doesn't play exactly like PJ Tucker. I'm not stupid. It's like, I felt like the energy plays, the offensive rebounds, the just being in the fray kind of moments, the energy and effort, the ability to pick spots on the floor where you can make an impact and you're not in the way. Those are all things PJ Tucker did well. And I felt like Haywood Highsmith kind of leaned into those things tonight. In 18 minutes, he had 7 points, 3 of 5 from the field, hit his 1 3-point shot. We're not going to reference his box plus minus 17. 4 offensive rebounds. So that's part of what I was watching. The 8 rebounds and 1 steal. I liked what I saw from Haywood Highsmith. I liked what I saw from Marcus Garrett at times too. I thought they both flashed. Caleb, I skimmed by. He's a regular in the rotation. I think he starts at the 4. Which of the guys, including Haywood Highsmith, really jumped out to you, if any, from the, kind of the exhibit 10 or better bench players?
So Highsmith definitely stood out to me. And I think if you're going to throw a comp out for former Heat players in similar roles, maybe it's just because of the long black socks he was wearing, but I was very much getting James Posey vibes from him.
I like it.
I do think it's probably just the long black socks, because that's just the look that I associate with Posey when he was here. And I feel like nobody else has really done that. Maybe Jason Williams while he was here too, but that was white. But it's a very distinct look. But as far as his actual game, I think perimeter wise, he looks like he's going to be, I think, this season's Caleb. I think he's going to be the guy who kind of stands out and is like, yeah, I like when this guy is on the floor. And, a lot of fans not going to know his name coming into the season the way that it was with Caleb last season. But yeah, I just think he's really solid out there, and he's not as big or as far as acreage with PJ Tucker, but he fills that role very nicely. Brady's talked about this a million times. He just fits really cleanly into that 3-and-D mold of what they need right now. And even though he's a little small to play the floor, I think they're good with it, especially if they're going to be rolling out 2 big lineups for spurts throughout the game. So you're not always playing small. I think it makes more sense. I just think Highsmith is already advanced as a perimeter defender. I would like to see what happens when he's on the floor regarding rebounding, because I do think he's a little small, but I love his instinct. I love the way he plays. He actually has thrown some advanced skip passes over the past couple of nights, which I definitely was not expecting to see. I think there's been 3 of them. I did not expect to see a single one. So, he just seems like a very smart player who has a good feel for the game. And, he has some experience now. He's been around for a little while. I think he started off with the Sixers as on their roster. He's not as young as some of these other guys. So he seems like he's next up in line. And yeah, Caleb, again, stood out last night, stood out again tonight. I think the shot just looks a lot better. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating because he had a good shooting season, but I just think he looks very confident in it. It looks very fluid to me. and he's been really good shooting wise over these past couple of nights. And Nikola Jovic, to me, is the other guy who I was really interested in seeing tonight. Too bad we only got to see him the last 5 or 6 minutes. But even then, I liked what I saw from Jovic in that playing time, because he very much has like the game of a guard where he'll come off screens and go off the catch from there. He had a nice drive to the rim. He likes to shoot it. He had the step back last night. I feel like he's just got a diverse offensive game that'll be really interesting to see the Heat mold, because he's a different type of prospect than the Heat have had in the past. And like a 7-footer with a natural guard skill set, I'm interested to see how the Heat use him. I just don't expect to see him much this season, even though I would very much like to see that, because I think, considering they need fours, I would not mind seeing Jovic get some playing time as a first-round pick, even though he's skinny and 19 years old, and the Heat just don't do things that way. So I'm not even going to get my hopes up. But I do like what we saw. Like, I think for him to get more playing time, he has to show some stuff in the time he actually does play. And I think he didn't necessarily do that in the summer league, right? Except that one game. And then tonight, I think he actually showed some stuff. It's like, okay,
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'd see the flashes. You see the potential. He's super young. I actually think he's going to get a shot. There's going to be some stupid West Coast trip that they go on and they're down 3 bigs and some guy's sick and he's going to get to play a night. And, because if we went through last season and we had, we had a Kyle Guy night. If we had a Kyle Guy night, we're going to have a Nikola Jovic night. So, but to your point, I don't think you're going to see a ton of them, but I do think that is an interesting thing to continue to watch, because he's a young prospect that Miami has held on to at a position of need. So hopefully as he continues to gain strength, speed of the game comes to him, that can be something that he can slide in. Because offensively, I feel like he's the perfect fit next to Bam, which I know has been something everyone's been looking for. But okay. We appreciate everyone riding with us for this very first 5 on the floor of it's officially the first 5 on the floor of the season, because the preseason started tonight. We are happy to be back in not quite mid-season form, but we're getting there. Thank you for joining us. We'll have you covered the rest of the week for the rest of the Heat's preseason games, and check out podcasts on the off days. We'll have those coming as well. Good night.